Okay, the biggest mistake is not having a goal. And so when you don't have a goal, you don't know what you're striving for. So what I like to do with events is I like to reverse engineer those events. When you are talking about reverse engineering, what you're going to do is you're going to establish a goal. So if your goal is $80,000, then it becomes, okay, I'm going to use this gift range chart. And if you need a good gift range chart, you can reach out to me. But gift range chart, you plug in 80,000 and it will tell you, okay, you plug in 80, and then on the side of the gift range chart, you're going to say my tables, because I'm using a gala as an example. My tables are going to start off at 1,005, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, right? And it'll populate. Okay, if your table started at 1,005, you're going to need 10 tables at 1,005, 6 tables at 2,005, 2 tables at 5,000, 1 table at 10,000. That's pretty simple. Then what you need to do is you say, first of all, you have to believe that you can secure 1,005. That's pretty standard in my community, 1,005 for a table. A table of 8. That's the pretty standard in my community. When you are setting your goal and you're developing what your tables will look like, right? It needs to be, how do I say this? The smallest number is what you're going to get. So I'm a business owner. I want to support people. So when I look down at us and I get a packet or someone asks me to help, what I do, and I'm sure I'm not abnormal, I look and I see what is the lowest level that I can say yes at and feel good and not say no. So if it starts off at 1,005, then that's my yes level. If it's a run or walk or whatever it is, if it's $500, then that's my yes level. So you have to understand that whatever your smallest level is, that's more than likely where people are going to say yes. If they care about your mission, if they if they're receptive to the person who is asking them, because that also makes a difference. So don't make the mistake of not having a goal, and don't make the mistake of not reverse engineering that goal, and don't make the mistake of having your sponsorship levels start out at a low or too low level. So to paint a story for you, I wouldn't have a table start off at $1,000, a table of 8. I just wouldn't. And I wouldn't sell half tables like, oh, for $1,000, then you get 4 seats. That's just very confusing. So set your minimum, do your gift range chart, know how many you need to get at each level. And then when you communicate with your board and have those conversations with your board, then you can say, okay, I need board members to get 2 tables. And it doesn't in that range, if that makes sense. Now I'm kind of thrown off because I wasn't on camera, so I don't know how much you heard, but I think that makes sense. So when you are having your special event, you don't have to promise the moon and the stars. I've seen and reviewed packets that will say, oh, for $500, you're going to get to come up on our stage. You're going to get to speak to the audience. You're going to get a swag bag. You're going to get X, Y, and Z. Unnecessary. If you are doing a gala and your level is 1,005, then they get at having a seat for 8 and getting a shout out on social media is enough. Then at the 2,500, they get that seat for 8. They get a shout out on social media, and they get their logo in the printed materials. And then for $5,000, they get the shout out on social media, the seat for 8, the logo on the printed materials, and they get a photo shoot before, a photo opportunity before the event. And then for the 10,000, you just keep building on that. And then ultimately on the 10,000, they get to come on the stage. Pretty simple. If it's a 5K, run or anything like that, started off at $500. They get a sign and a shout out. Then you go to your next level. Let's say it's $1,000, $1,500. They get a sign, they get a shout out, and they get to add materials to your swag bag. And you go to the next level. They get a sign, they get a shout out, they get to add materials to your next level. And if you have a shirt, they get their logo printed on the back of the shirt. And then at that top level, they get the swag bag. So I'm thinking you get it. They get the sign, they get the swag bag, they get the logo on the back of the shirt. Then they get to get items in a bag. Then they get to address the crowd or set up a water tent, a branded water tent for their organization. So you kind of get that. So I really want to drill that in because that's the mistake that I see a lot. No goal, and you're trying to give away everything at the minimum level because you think, oh, if I give them this, then they're going to say yes. That's not why they're saying yes. They're saying yes because of the person who asked them. They're saying yes because they believe in the mission. All of those good things. That's why they're saying yes. So I don't want to keep going down that road. So the next thing is, how can organizations create memorable experiences when they're doing a special event that truly engage attendees and inspire action? This is where the emotional connection comes in. So your client or your mission has to be front and center. So there is no secret that I was a CEO of a Boys and Girls Club for over 20 years. And so at special events, my kids were front and center. So what does that mean? Go back to the gala, because everybody likes talking about a gala or dinner or whatever. First of all, I refuse to call it a gala because people be galaed out. So we call it something else, right? Celebration, whatever it is. And we didn't want people to have to dress up. So for Boys and Girls Club, shout out to Daisy Martinez Hinojosa, who has really elevated this event that we started. Ours was called Stake in Your Community. We're in Texas, y'all. So boots and jeans. So they got to wear their boots and jeans. But when they arrived at the event, it was a club kid who greeted them and walked them into the venue. That was one. When we first started out, we held it in our club at our facility. That was very strategic for us because we had a new building and we wanted people to see our new building. So that's keeping our mission front and center. When they got out of the car and they walked up, we had cute club kids greet them and walk them into the facility so they could have conversations on the walk. They can see that these young kids are being productive, that they're engaged. And so we had them walk in. Once they walked into the event, when they sat at their table, there was a table of 10 and they got to bring 8 guests, but the other 2 guests were club kids. So they got to sit and have this dinner and interaction with the kids because kids don't lie. They're cute, they're funny, but they don't lie. And so they will tell the good and the bad and the needs to be improved of your mission. But it was good to have our donors see that. At the center of the table was the centerpieces were designed in our arts and crafts studio, made by club kids. It could be as simple as a flower pot, whatever the arrangement was, right? But then in that arrangement, we had pictures of the kids sticking out of those arrangements. And it had their age on the front and a little bit about them. So in the placemats that were on the table, they were done in our arts and crafts. 11 by 17 paper. Kids drew, colored, did all their great stuff. We laminated them. Those were the placemats for the table. We had coasters on the table. That also was done by the kids. And they were the keepsakes that people got to take home when they left. A part of the program was Our youth of the year standing up and sharing. We announced who our youth of the year was. They got to meet all the candidates, and then first, second, third place received a scholarship, and they got to stand up, the first place winner, and share their story. So do you see how we made sure that our attendees could see, taste, smell the mission throughout the evening? And this made it memorable for them because people will remember stories. They will remember the stories that the little girl shared at the table with them. They will remember the story that the youth of the year shared with them. But let's say your mission ain't cute kids, right? Like I said, I just finished the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society banquet. 2 of them, actually. One was rockin' tacos. The other one was bourbon and bubbles. Same concept. It's for blood cancers. So what do? We have quotes around the room about how research saves lives. We have actual cancer survivors, which I am one, in the room and willing to share their story. I got pulled on the stage to share my story. You have staff there that's willing to share information. So you have to create memorable experiences that fully engage your attendees and inspire action. So I'm going to talk about the inspire action. Remember I said, if your goal is $80,000, then you get that before the doors even open from the table sales or from the teams. If you're doing 5K, whatever it is, this inspire action means once they get there, you also need to have other opportunities where they can give. Work with me on this one. Oftentimes you will have a live auction. If you're going to do a live auction, that is great. It means when people buy their tables, they need to sit at the tables, one, and they need to have the ability to participate in a live auction. That's our strategy, and a whole nother conversation. So you got live auction is one way, and I always say have at least 3 enhancers or 2 enhancers. You have your live auction because that's money on top of the 80. If that was your goal, you're going to have. I don't like silent auctions in the traditional sense because they create a lot of work. So I've done blind auctions, I've done mystery boxes, I've done all that gamut and found different ways to raise money. One of the best ways is from the live. If you do a live auction, you can do a still. We call it a playing card, where we sell the playing cards for $100, and we call it still an auction item from the live auction before it even goes live. And we sell I think it's 54 cards in a deck or 52, and we sell those for $100. So that guarantees you $5,200 right there before the live auction starts. So there's many ways. I do have a special events ebook that I've done that gives all the instructions for this. And so in inspiring actions, you're giving people different ways that they can contribute. So let's say they came in and the bank bought the table for $1,500, not them. They walk in, now they have an ability individually to spend maybe $100 on the live auction still. If that's above their price level, I like to have something at the $50 to $25 level. Maybe that's a mystery box station or a wine pool or something like that. And then on the table itself, I have a QR code. And at the end of the night, it's a very intentional conversation that says, if you attended and your job bought this table and you didn't participate in the live auction still, and you didn't get the mystery box, on your table is a QR code where you have the opportunity to scan that code and donate and go into that spiel. Hopefully you set up the whole night to inspire action because you are surrounding them with your mission. And as you can see, right, storytelling plays a huge role in these events being successful. If you're not intentionally incorporating storytelling, then you're going to have trouble boosting event engagement. You want people, again, to understand why they are there. Yes, it's a special event. You want them to have fun. You don't want to have this long, boring program, but you want them to understand why they are there. Again, if you have the ability with your mission to have your clients be involved in the event, then have your clients be involved in the event and create intentional moments where they can tell their story or share their story if they feel comfortable sharing their story, right? Because that's going to make a difference. If that is not possible, then use technology to have video playing. I remember, y'all remember when those Kodak cameras first came out? No, not cameras. Don't judge. Those Kodak frames came out. We got like 50 of those frames, and it still probably will work today. We got like 50 of those frames, and on each auction table, we plugged up that frame and set it right at the beginning right at the top of the table, and it showed pictures of our kids in our after school program running on loop on those frames. So now with mobile TVs and all that stuff and iPads and all that stuff, you can have pictures of your clients show, of your program in action, whatever it is. You have to think about, how can I use storytelling to boost the engagement? And when you are working with your board, that's why mission moments are so critical. If you're starting your board meetings off with mission moments, you need to tell your board to share those stories that they have learned, because stories sell, facts tell. Nobody's going to remember your facts. Nobody's going to, you're going to get up there with that riveting information that says, 80% of our clients experience success, blah, 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 blah. No one's going to remember the 80% of our clients experience success, but they will remember when someone gets up and tell their story. So how are you intentionally using storytelling throughout your event? It's going to make a difference. And you can use technology in the storytelling. I mean, I went all the way back to the Kodak frames, y'all, and how do we use the Kodak frames in this storytelling, right? Now they have actually Chris, who was going to come back, his company, they have kiosk, right? That can be used during special events. So you can use social media. The Juneteenth celebration that I'm involved with, I don't call it a gala. Again, I call it a dinner, Perfecting Unity dinner. We live stream our entire dinner on our social media because we want to increase the event reach and interaction. When we have it together, the museum board that I serve on, they have it together. They release their auction list a week in advance, and we use digital platforms so that people who can't come to the event can still bid on things. And so you can leverage the technologies, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I'm gonna give a low tech one that I use all the time for most of my events that I am the chair of, and that is having our sponsor logos on loop on a PowerPoint, playing throughout the evening. And then when it comes time for the live auction, I also have a PowerPoint for each live auction item playing on loop. And as the auctioneer is talking about it, we can freeze frame and he can explain what it is and people can visually see it, because a lot of times with the live auction items, it could be certificates for a restaurant or for hunts or for these trip experiences. And so I want to give people a visual. That's a low tech reach, a PowerPoint, a LCD, a screen, and have it going. So technology can be your friend, and you can make it as complicated as you want, or keep it simple as you want, but you do need to incorporate some technology into your event. So if you're just joining us right now, we're talking about how to improve your special event engagement. And we really talked about some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to special events, and that's not having a goal. And you need to reverse engineer that. And it's a great thing called a gift range table. And if you need one, you could just reach out to me. I don't think that's a tool that I have in my VIP resource library. As something I think you have to reach out, because this is a valuable tool, and partner with me and I can walk you through it. And so the other thing is just really using storytelling and making sure when people attend your event that they can see, taste, smell the mission. That's what you want to do. You want to create those moments for them, and you want to use technology when you can in creating those moments. And so one of the things I always get to is, what are some creative ways to encourage participation for both in-person and virtual event attendees? So for the in-person, some creative ways, again, is I'm going to give you an example of one thing that I've done, and I really loved it for the in-person. So remember how I said the people bought the table, they had an opportunity to participate in maybe steal a live auction or mystery box at $50. And then at the end of the event, we have a QR code on the table and we give everybody the opportunity to participate. Well, we did this thing called light up the room. So when it came time for an opportunity for everyone to participate, so let me just paint it again. So if you bought a Steal the Live auction card, you got a pin, and that pin, it glowed, or it did blinky lights, right? In this case, it was a cowboy hat. The lights blinked because the event was sticking in your community. If you participated and got a mystery box, right? You got the pin. So at the end of the night, the goal was for everyone to have a pin. That means they actively participated in fundraising. Right? So now at the end of the night, say 70% don't have a pen, perhaps. So we did what you call light up the room. We have that QR code on the table. We say we turn off the lights. We tell people to have their blinkies on. And then we tell people we want to light up the room. And this is their opportunity. If they have not given, then we ask them to give. They can either scan a QR code, or we had the software where they could enter. And as soon as they did, we went and we gave them the light. And we did that until the light was literally illuminated just by the pins that they had on their chest. Not by the lights in the room, but just by the pin that they had on their chest. That's called light up the room. That is one of the creative ways that I've seen. I didn't create that idea. I borrowed or stole that idea from another organization, and it really worked very well. For virtual attendees, like I said, for Village in the Valley, we do stream our event, and we also give people opportunity to participate and comment. And so we have a radio show that's a streaming 97.7. They stream, and that's what they do. And so they are providing like contest information and comments as people are participating in it, because for our celebration of unity, the Juneteenth, it's also an educational moment. So if they can answer certain questions, their name goes into a drawing, and that's how we get the virtual event attendees involved in that. But like I said, you can open up a auction a week before if you're having an in-person event, and they can still participate in it if they're not in person. So you have to create those moments. And during COVID, I saw some great stuff. I wish we were so ready to go back to in-person events. And I think people have totally gone back to in-person events. but there is something to be said for hybrid events and giving people the opportunity that may not be able to attend in person, the ability to actually participate and to support an organization. So don't abandon all those. The next thing we'll talk about is, how do you follow up with event guests after the event, right? You most of the time it's their business who sponsored the event, if they're, the bank or whatever, and you got these people that was sitting at the table, and you got the information because they had to register. If you ain't got them to register, you need to get them to register in advance, at least with their name and their email. Even if they don't buy anything, you can use a simple jot form with a QR code. Hey, that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother training. But you have their information. So at minimum, guys, to follow up, all of the guests at the event should get a handwritten card. I know. They should get a handwritten card, not an email, but a handwritten card that says, thank you for coming to the event. If you have their address, and there's ways that you can get the address, like I said, when they sign in. So you want to do that. And that's a great activity for your board members, to have them do handwritten cards. Do not tell me it's not possible. There's an event that has 350 people. And if we have their address information, we send a handwritten card. That's one way to follow up. The other way to follow up, and I like this one, is I send out a reconciliation, almost like a fulfillment report, a reconciliation or fulfillment report to the attendees that says, it was a great event. This is how many people attended. This is what our net was. And because of you, this is how many kids or how many, whatever it is going to be able to participate in X, Y, and Z. You can call it an impact report. You can call it a fulfillment report. That's what you need to do, because oftentimes people come to these events and they don't know if it was a successful event. They don't know where the money went. None of that. That is a way. And then as far as other things that you can do for the event guest is make sure, if you captured their email when they registered, have the statement that you're adding them to the email list, that they're opting into your email, and you get them on your email, and you have that constant cadence of communication to them, whether your newsletter is monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, whatever, you have that communication with them. So those are just some ways that you can follow up with your event guest, right? To deepen the relationship. Because if they're a sponsor, how you can follow up with them is, I always say, again, the fulfillment report. You want them to know how the event went as far as sponsor level. And then for me, I'm just going to teach you a little strategy that I've done. If I have an event that is in June, so let's talk about this event that we have coming up next week. It's in June. And about November, December, we will send them something very nice. And when I say we send them something very nice, we have a board member that is a baker, and the girl is the bomb. And so she would do like cookies, or she'll do cookies with their logo, depending on how much time she has. And then each of us who secured that sponsor will then deliver that gift to that sponsor to say thank you. It's to say thank you during the holiday season, but it's also to prep them, because we start planning for the June event real heavy. We start planning in January for that event. So it's very strategic in how we do that. So we get them on the newsletter list. We send them a newsletter. We send them a fulfillment report. But around the holiday, we make them cookies, and we send them cookies out to them to say thank you, because in January, we're going to be doing our initial ask again for the June event. So I hope that makes sense to you. That's how that works. And you kind of have to figure out your timeline and how you do that. And so as we're talking about these special events, I know that budget is a limiting factor, but let me share this with you. I was able to put on an event that raised over $100,000, but our expenses was about $20,000. I remember the first time we did our staking your community event, and I was at a conference, and this is why I'm saying this, because sometimes it's good to go to conferences and get out of your comfort zone and you start hearing other people talk. I remember another organization saying that like Outback Steakhouse had sponsored their whole like gala and provided everything. And I thought, well, we have an Outback Steakhouse in our community. So once I heard that, it gave me the courage to go to our Outback Steakhouse. I had a board member go with me for moral support. And we went, and it was like less than a 15-minute conversation, y'all. And they were like, yes, we will cater it. We will do it. And they did our steak dinner for at least 5 years. It was steak. It was salad. It was tea. It was the rolls. It was everything. And they even bought the wait staff in. So remember, our event was in our facility. So there was no venue cost. Then we got Outback Steakhouse to sponsor the food. So then, you know, the smaller things were the round tables and the linens and all that stuff like that. So that's how we were able to do that event, less than $20,000. Fast forward, now they do the same event at an arena. And Daisy, again, shout out to Daisy, is using her connections with that arena, selling out an arena to be able to host it there. So you have to look around at yourself and at your board members, and you have to say, what connections do we have? Let's just ask and see how we can minimize these costs. So when Outback Steakhouse left our community, we were like, crap, who else are we going to find that's going to do the top quality that they did? Well, let me just say, there is a local family. I'm not going to say their name online because I don't think they would appreciate that. But they love barbecuing. We Texas, y'all. The huge family. And for the last 15 years, every year, clockwork, the family comes in. They make all the steaks. They make the best asparagus I've ever tasted in my life. And I don't like asparagus with the baked potato. And the family cooks it. They come in, they get the aprons. We made them aprons with the logos and all that, and they serve it. So it is possible. Now, that's not monetary, but that's a huge impact of savings. So what I have learned in this special event, and especially using dinners and galas as an example, you just got to ask. You just have to ask. And maybe it'll be a no, but anywhere that you can save money, try to save money. With Village in the Valley, we switch our venues because we're across the valley. Some venues work with us. We've never been able to get it for free. I will say that, but we have been able to get great discounts because we asked. And not only that, we've been able to work with wholesale alcohol vendors. Because venues, y'all, I learned this just this week. If I pay direct wholesale $48 for a bottle of liquor, the venue will charge $100. They double up the price. So the smart thing would be to go straight to the wholesale to get a donation. So that way, beer distributors oftentimes will support you by providing donated beer to events. I've used it quite often. So you have to think about your expenses, and your biggest expenses is going to be venue and food. Those are your biggest expenses. And see if you have a way or contacts or connections to kind of lower those costs by reaching out to your network. And believe it or not, I found for venue, you can get some huge discounts. I did have a board member who had a fabulous house, that could host about 200 people. And she was willing to let us do that. So you just got to look around and see what you have at your disposal and think outside the box. And so with all of this in mind, I hope that you did learn a little bit about how to improve your special event engagement. It's about the storytelling. It's about putting your mission front and center. It's about don't give away everything in the kitchen sink for the lowest level of funding because you're afraid that they're going to say no. Know that whatever is at the bottom of that, whether it's 1,005 or 500, that's what most people are going to give. And reverse engineer it with a gift range chart and have your goal reach before the doors even open. And anything beyond that is the enhancers and gravy on top. That's a lot of information, y'all. I realize that it is a lot of information, but again, I do these all the time. This month alone, I've done like 4 or 5, and I would tell you they've been, well, what I consider to be successful, which is raising over $50,000, especially when you're having back-to-back for the same organizations. It can be hard. That's the other thing. I'm glad I said that before I leave you. Guys, listen to me. 2 signature events. That's it. Anything more than that, you're saturating your audience. You're not going to get the biggest bang for your buck. I was working with a client and they're doing like quarterly events. And I'm like, okay, tell me how much these event raised. Oh, $7,000, $12,000. You're killing yourself. 2 signature events at maximum. 1 would be great. And then you put your efforts into that and learning the best practices that you learn here and in other places, you can do some great things. And maybe the first year you only do $30,000. That's better than the $7,000 and then the $12,000 you were doing the other quarter, right? And then next year you get better and you get better. I will say this to you to give you some encouragement. Village in the Valley, Young Board. This is our 5th year. The first year, focus, we netted $30,000. We were very happy about that. Last year, we netted over $50,000. This year, I challenged them and said, guys, we can sell 50 tables before the doors even open. We are 10 days away from the event. We have sold 40 tables. 40 tables. We have collected $65,000 in table sales before the doors even open. This can be done. It is strategic. It is systematic. And so I'm hoping you're hearing me. I'm going to check really quick to see if there's any questions. And if there's not any questions, the most common question I get is, Sabrina, can you help me with engaging my board in fundraising? And the answer is yes. Now, don't be expecting no miracles. Your board has to have the foundation. If they don't have the foundation, I share the foundation first, and then we launch from there. What I find is a lot of times people just want to launch. They just want to launch into the fundraising, and they don't have the foundation. We got to establish the foundation first. And then, so if you're interested in that, just visit my website at www.buildingbetterboards.com. Check out my services. And if you're watching this in rebroadcast and you have a question, just post the questions in the comments and I'll get back to you and we can go from there. Now, with that in mind, I don't even know if you can hear this. This is starting off with some tech issues. And then from the tech issues, it went from I wasn't on screen, and now you can hear my dogs. So that's Tipping Tea with Sabrina. I am going to see you the next time. You guys have been a blast. Good morning, Hunter. Yeah, thank you. So Hunter, thank you for that. If you want, I'm going to drop in the comments. I will drop the link to my special event enhancers. So that way you can download it. It's completely free. So thank y'all so very much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.